Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As we join the new year, many of us have resolutions to improve our lives. Perhaps we're trying to find things such as how to quit smoking, lose weight, perhaps exercise more. And for many who are looking for better relationships, whether it's with themselves or for others, many people find that in relationships it can be most challenging and painful part of the human experience. We all desire to attract a better partner, but many of us end up in the vicious cycle of attracting what we don't like. Such is the story that happened with our guest joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today, as she went through and became more powerful through 2 former marriages before she finally found one that became lasting and wonderful. Today we're going to be talking about how we can create lasting relationships with the use of a wonderful tool, modality if you will, known as PSYCH-K. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is a PSYCH-K facilitator and trainer. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program our guest, Rita Soman. Rita, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Thank you, Dan, for inviting me. I'm so excited to talk about today's topic.
Now, it's interesting because a new book was produced, that you published, and the title is Thank God I Am an Empowered Woman, in which you share a chapter with other women about that very thing, relationships, and what you were grateful for, especially for the one that wasn't very good. Tell us a little bit about that.
In that book, I wrote about my relationship with my first husband, who was an alcoholic, an addict, and unfortunately ended up taking his life. That marriage of 6 years, was very painful, very traumatic. Everybody in my family and my friends tried to tell me I was making a mistake, but I was under the grip of his love. So, or you can say that I had to learn my lessons that were the divine plan. So, I just got into the relationship and suffered. So, I had no idea about what I know now about relationships. So, a few years later, I got married again with my husband. I've been married for 28 years now. I was happy only during the first 6-8 months of my marriage, and feeling relieved and happy and excited, but always thinking in my head like, oh my God, how did that happen? Who am I to have this relationship? So my unworthiness issues popped up, and I started to disbelieve about my current reality, and so my old reality popped up in my head, all those issues, and I was perceiving everything now in this marriage for almost 18 years from where I was coming from. It's not what happens between two people, it's how we perceive those turmoils in a relationship. That'll decide, how we're going to resolve it, or if you're going to separate, or what we'll do. So since I'm a professional and a psychotherapist, and it's very important for me to be a role model for my clients, so I choose to fix things, not throw away, because this was my second relationship. So I knew deep down that it's not a relationship. There's something that within me that is not letting me enjoy this beautiful relationship that I attracted with law of attraction, And so, but I kept getting therapy from a psychologist and rapid eye therapy and many other modalities, So I was able to just deal with my symptoms for a short time, but not all the way. Then I became a workaholic. So I spend very little time with him. So when I come once in a while home from beach from my practice, so there was a honeymoon period there. But the issues were still, there in me. So I avoided spending too much time with him. And I was worried that my old behaviors would pop up. He's being so nice to me, and I would feel guilty because then I would respond to him with love. And I took things personally, or I'll fight with him. Then I felt guilty and ashamed of myself. So in my book, I mentioned about how I conquered this. So luckily, 10 years ago, when PSYCH-K showed up in my life via Dr. Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology Belief, I thought I was attracting this process as additional tool to help my clients, but it turned out to be a very life-changing experience for me using this work. Not only it helped me with my marriage, but it also helped me with every aspect of my life, including my health problem. Due to stress, I had a thyroid problem, so that was totally healed with this work. So I basically worked on my self-esteem and healing my past trauma, to be able to enjoy, my marriage.
Now, that seems like quite a path, and it's really interesting when you feel or sense from people that, there's a lot of frustration who believe, people who can't find the love of their life, especially in our Western culture where we just replace relationships, It ain't working for me, so I'm just going to kind of go on their way. And you kind of wonder, why do you think that people struggle in creating a loving and lasting relationship?
Because, our subconscious mind can only create what it knows. It prefers the familiar. And since our parents are our role models, if we haven't seen a loving relationship between them, and their relationship with us was not loving, for example, so our subconscious mind doesn't even know what love is all about, So I love, Bruce Lipton's quote about, where he says, he has written a book, on, it's called The Honeymoon Effect, and he talked about that, that until, we love ourselves, for us to attract love is not possible. For example, he said, as I learned again and again in my life, until you get your own act together, you're not ready for big love. What you're ready for is one of those codependent relationships where you desperately need a partner. So that was the case with me, that I used to think that, what would I do if I'm left alone? My insecurity, my fears showed up, that kept me in that relationship. My unworthiness, that I didn't deserve to be loved, also kept me in that relationship. So why people can't find long-lasting relationship, loving, is because their subconscious mind it doesn't know. It says, I know what you're talking about. So, but what we do with the process that we talk about today, that gave me a breakthrough in my life, is called PSYCH-K. I have spoken about it at your show many times before, but today I thought, because we are nearing Valentine's Day and everybody wants to know how to create a relationship, how to have a loving person in my life. So I thought, this will be a good time to talk about that. So with that work, we have to describe, if we have not experienced anything like this before, then we have to describe to the subconscious mind in a sensory-based language what we are talking about. So we define the goal in a sensory-based language, and then we look into the beliefs that are preventing us from getting into a loving relationship or sustaining a relationship, and then we start to work with the person.
Now, it's said that a lot of times people end up attracting partners that are much like their partner or parents. Is that really true?
Yeah, very true. I was just reading a news today about this very famous Indian actor who's separating from his wife. They had been married for 15 years. And I searched his history. I knew that there has something. I know his parents were divorced and remarried. And exactly when he was about 15 years old, that's where his real parents separated. So amazingly, how, the mind just takes us on the journey. Okay, up to this point, my life is going to be okay. At this point, this happened. If we don't release the trauma, so we will recreate the same experience like our parents. You can call it, like, people can say, oh, we were not compatible, or he was working too much, which is also true, But at the same time, if you were in a healthy relationship, then you will have a balance in your life. You will make sure you only sign up as many movies you can handle, while maintaining your balance. Whatever we do outside is a reflection of what we think and feel inside, our consciousness, that directs our behaviors, our subconscious mind, those programs. So that's why we actually end up attracting same people, because that's what our subconscious mind is familiar with. And then people say, "Oh, you're just like your mom. You're just like your dad." Of course, I was like my dad, and my dad was an angry person for whatever reason. There's a reason I know why he was, but when I was a kid, I didn't have a logical mind to think that, oh, he's just mad today because he had a bad day, but he loves me. So I perceived that as like, he's angry, and I was afraid. And, I ended up attracting somebody just like my dad, I tried to run away from my father to find somebody who, my father was a wonderful man, but those times when, incidents when he would get upset, not even on me, somebody else, but, your mind will perceive it that way. Forget about the human beings. We have two dogs, One of my dogs, is not eating food or chewing on his paw, and I just tried to tell him firmly, don't do it. So my other dog perceives that I am mad at him, or I'm mad, and she'll also run away from there, even though it's not directed to her. So I was just thinking about it, like as a child, how, my father was not mad at me directly, but how my mind perceived the whole thing, and noted there. And you will think that, later on, you don't want to attract those people in your life because you say, I had it enough, But, you ended up with those same kind of people because there was a lesson in that one that you didn't learn. So we keep attracting the same partners over and over until we learn the lesson. Actually, our relationships are best teachers because we spend 24/7 with each other. They're like mirrors. So we learn a lot about ourselves. So leaving this relationship, going to another person, you're just changing the mirror. You're not changing the program. So what needs to happen is people need to change those programs, subconscious programs that, get in the way of attracting the relationship that don't like. Otherwise, this epidemic is going to keep rising, and we'll have more instability in a relationship, more broken families. It takes a big toll on children, when that happens. So to stop whatever is happening in the world, when two people don't get along together, and there's a lot of, we hear on the news, that how they kill each other and the whole family, in one go. So, and then we hear the news where the children, bombing schools and places and school shootings and, all that stuff happening. We later find out that this person came from a very dysfunctional family. It's time that before we get into a relationship, we really need to look into ourselves and say, am I ready for love? Have I gotten my act together? So if you haven't, I would say that work on that. I really appreciate those people who know their inner truth and they decide not to get married. At least they're not doing damage to other people. But at the same time, by not getting into a relationship, for example, you decide that no, I'm not for a relationship. Whatever reason you decide not to be in a relationship, that issue still remains with you.
It's really interesting because I know as I read that chapter in the book. I'm sorry?
You end up with a serious disease, It's not somebody causes you stress and you blame your spouse and say, because of you, I have a blood pressure problem, or I got cancer because of all the stress I experienced in the marriage, So what about people who decide not to get married ever and still suffer those problems? Because it's not the outside that causes us. It is the inside that creates our outside.
Now, what's really interesting is, for the listeners out there, the chapter that you wrote in the book, Empowered Women, or Woman, excuse me, is that you talked about healing as an inside job, that, it's interesting how we get into loving relationships. And I remember relationship expert Barbara D'Angelo says, we tend to fall in love with people who make us feel good about ourselves. And when they can no longer do that, that's where trouble arises, and they always say, well, you're not the same person, for instance, that I first got into a relationship with. So I think I'm going to leave it. Really what they're saying is, you don't make me feel good about me anymore. And you realize, wait a minute, there's disaster right there. If you need somebody to make you feel good, if you need somebody else to make you feel complete in any aspect of your lives, is it fair to say you're the problem?
Yeah, of course. Of course. And people have children because they think if their marriage is in trouble, if I have a child, that will bond us together. That doesn't work, that way. Now you're bringing the child in this mess, Or sometimes people want to have children because they were not treated right, in their childhood. So they decide to do a better job with their children in a marriage, But what happens is that even though they're able to do a better job with their children, but they don't realize that over 97% of communication happens non-verbally. And also, kids have their programming already, So, and then not taking care of yourself and try to do a better job with your children, for example, you're doing more damage to yourself because then your parents ignored you and didn't treat you well, and now you're ignoring yourself and you're not treating yourself well because your inner child gets this message that, other people are more important than I am, So that's not a good idea, Once again, you have to prepare yourself. And why we run after love? We run after things we missed out as a child. For example, if we missed out money, people will run after money because they have a belief that, I can really feel better about myself. If I become wealthy, people will respect me more, and I'll get recognition that I didn't get as a child. That was my case, First I ran after money, after love, and then when I felt like a failure, and I thought, okay, that's not going to happen for some reason. So I just decided to fall in love with money, and then I started attracting that one. But again, whatever you do, whether you go after a partner or change partners or go after money or any of your addictive habits, drinking, drugs, gambling, shopping, you're still, not getting the message. You're just trying to soothe the effect of your past trauma by doing such behaviors, But, if somebody has a heart problem, for example, what do you think they need to do? They need to go see a doctor and take care of that. So it's not people's fault, actually. Many people are not aware of the fact that our subconscious mind is at play. When they are in love, in the beginning during courtship, they are saying, this is the person I want to marry, And when that wears off, and when the subconscious programming, automatic takes over, then you kind of wonder, boy, this is not the person I married. You have changed. The person hasn't changed. The person was using more of a conscious mind in that moment. But now that you are in a relationship together, so he doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to please you or try to be extra nice, so the real truth comes out, then we have problems.
Tell us about PSYCH-K. Here's something interesting that I wanted to point out. As we had done an interview with you a few years back on this, fascinating talk, to say the very least. It's interesting how there's been people who came on and they decided to comment by saying, well, here, and in fact, it's also the same thing on the other interview that we did with the founder of PSYCH-K, Robert Smith, is once in a while you'll get somebody on there that says, oh, here's somebody pitching a book and a program, trying to sell you something, but nobody's out there telling you how to do it or how to teach it. First of all, let's talk about what PSYCH-K does. And in fact, is it something that's teachable to somebody else where they can do it on their own?
Okay, first of all, I would like to clarify that it's Robert Williams, not like Rob Williams. not Robert Smith.
My apologies. You're right, and I was just looking on our YouTube channel and realized that my mistake.
That's okay. Just want to try. I'm going to give him credit for creating this beautiful process in 1988, and he is an example of his own work. He's one of those people who takes his own medication before he gives it to people. So I'm very honored to be part of PSYCH-K, and all the people in it. So PSYCH-K is a process. Basically, we use kinesiology, muscle testing, to communicate with the subconscious mind and change those self-definitions. For example, people have put on us, or the definitions we have about their marriage, in this case, Also heal the trauma, that we have experienced. If we don't release the trauma, basically we are transforming the trauma, the perception of the trauma. So we don't forget what happens. We perceive it differently. For example, if I had resentment for my father for being mad and all the stuff, or my ex-husband. So when I do PSYCH-K work, PSYCH-K balance is the technique, process that creates a balanced identification with both hemispheres of the brain, where now you're able to use both left and right hemisphere to process the information. And this is how the subconscious mind is programmed. When you're doing the balance, then your logical mind, if you're more right brain dominated, so you're more stuck there with emotions and try to understand from emotional point of view, or if you're more dominated in the left hemisphere, then you're just using more analytical mind. Why? But the thing is that with PSYCH-K, when you do the PSYCH-K balance, and you're able to utilize both left and right brain, attributes, and then we are able to look at things from a different place. We're able to understand that it wasn't something that was intended. It was something that, the person, you also start thinking about some good times also, not just the bad times. So it helps us change these definitions. So since, subconscious mind is running most of our programs, so it's important that we go to that mind and see what it is running in that minute, when we're having a big struggle going on. And we can actually end up, as in my case, I am so grateful to be in my marriage for 28 years. Had I left, I was in America. Not that I didn't try to leave, but I thought about it many times. I packed my bags many times, that I wanted to leave. But it was never, because deep down I kind of knew, that there was something here. I wasn't going to try a third relationship. And again, I thought about, my God, I'll be all alone in America. I don't know many people here. I have friends, but not my family. And other fear I had was that my father thought I was very happy in my marriage. And I thought, if he finds out that I'm not happy, then he would have a heart attack. So I had this fear, and I had insecurity, So all these issues that needed to be dealt with, And that's why I'm so grateful to this process that showed up in my life that actually helped me to get face to face with my issues and what are those emotions that are part of my consciousness that I feel all the time. What are the beliefs that I have that make me think this way negatively and have these negative emotions generated. So I was able to, of course, there's a layer of it, I mean, relationship is not just with your spouse, it's with your children, with the neighbors, with your friends, You can get into codependent situation with anyone, like you can get into a codependent situation where your boss is not treating you right, and you think I should leave my job and go somewhere else, But you stay for a long time because deep down you're saying, well, I need to look for another job before I do that. Even if you're able to leave and go for another job, you will have the same problem because it's not the boss we attract. When we have low self-esteem, we consciously or unconsciously invite others to treat us that way. Why people don't treat me that way anymore? It's because I don't have those self-definitions that I deserve to be treated poorly or I deserve to be disrespected. I have no programs like I'm a good person, I deserve the best in life, I'm a patient person, I take time to think before I respond to anything. I'm not impatient. That's just, I see people as they are, not as, I was. So all these things that I was able to change with PSYCH-K. And for example, if somebody has a problem of biting nails, okay, this is not the topic, but I'm just giving an example, right? But, you can just try to help them with, okay, we can help you with overnight get rid of this anxiety problem with this method or that method. But we are not working on a habit, but the source of the habit. So maybe this is one way the person is attacking self with anxiety. So PSYCH-K goes to those core beliefs and change that so that they're not anxious in any situation. So it's not replacing with one partner with another partner or one symptom with another symptom. That's what happens in a traditional talk therapy, They reroute you basically, in life. But we need to read out our program, not like read out our circumstances, reality, change people, change jobs, stop drinking, why we did it in the first place. Who's going to take care of that? That issue remains in us, and that's why we need to go to that embedded anxiety, that embedded self-esteem problem, insecurity, fears, so that's causing us to have problems.
It's just also fascinating. I remember, just to give our listeners an idea, when they might ask the question, well, how do we know the subconscious is making a choice or a decision or reacting to a situation? And I suppose my first thing, because I remember when we talked a few years back, I started really paying attention to how do I react to things. A lot of times if it's a great feeling, hey, no big deal, but it's those situations that, well, to give you an idea, I went to get on the Max line, which they have in Portland, Oregon, and brought my dog on. And there was a lady who was talking to the Max operator that seemed to wonder, what is your policy about having dogs on the Max line? Apparently she might have been bothered by this. And at first I started off telling her, look, if this is a problem for you, I'll go ahead and get on another car. But I could feel inside of me this sort of rising tide, like, this is upsetting me, And she immediately said, look, I'm not talking to you. And that made me even more upset, and it just began to escalate. And so what I did is I just kind of walked away, and I sat down, and I just really felt this intense frustration, anger, whatever you want to call it. I thought to myself, where is this really coming from? It's not her. This is something else. And it's amazing how your body will speak to you, how your mind will speak to you when you ask questions, especially as I did in this situation. And what came to me was I was really upset because somebody was seemingly deciding an outcome for me that I had no involvement or no say in. Such as like, and it went back as far as grade school for me when one day I was simply just sent to the office where I spent the whole day in the nurse's office. And that was dictated by other people, and I had nothing to say about this. And to realize that you carry something like that for a long time, that it could have been her, it could have been anybody else, but the situation would have been the same. I would have become upset because it triggered in me an experience where other people were dictating what was going to happen to me without me having any input or any say in it. So it was like other people were controlling me. And you can see how it's really important that in relationships, and it doesn't matter what the relationship is, it's a loving relationship, relationships with your children, your friends, your boss, any of it, I think the key to know when you're operating from a subconscious belief would be, what do you feel the reaction in you is? How immediate is that? Would that be a fair way to look at it?
Definitely. So how we see people, how we interpret it, that'll tell you a lot about where you're coming from. And at that time, it's up to us. Either we keep pointing a finger on the other person, or we just take responsibility and say, oh, this person is triggering something in me. This can be a beautiful gift that you can give to yourself by getting in touch with those emotions and those issues, that need to be transformed, because it's not going to go away unless, we work on ourselves. I'll give you another example during our childhood, like how people feel abandoned, For example, a child goes to the mother and is not behaving, and he wants to stay up a little longer, But, mommy or daddy says, go to your room, If you keep bugging us, I'm not going to like you. So our child mind or our infant mind distorts these early messages and early punitive messages, from our parents and turning it into like, I'm not a good girl or I'm not a good boy. They're going to go away and I'll be all alone, and that's terrible. And that sticks with people for the rest of their lives. And then, when they're in a relationship, that they call it loving relationships, they have got all these embedded, twisted perceptions of how relationships are supposed to work. The psyche goes to those root, distorted self-definitions, on relationships again, about ourselves, eliminate the issues of abandonment and fear that people have, then they're able to select partners that are more healthy and not attract partners who are toxic and abusive, to be able to sustain a relationship. So that's the best way I would, I'm blessed to be in a great relationship, but had I known this work before, I would have not gotten into another relationship. I would have healed myself first. But, or you can say this was my journey, was supposed to go this way. But I'm glad this way I was able to just also know about how people, to avoid themselves or avoid dealing with those issues, they go in subconscious denial, and everybody can see a problem, but they don't see. They see the other person has a problem. Even when you go to a marriage therapist, it turns out to be a match between two people, and as a psychotherapist and try to help my clients, couples, with just talk therapy. I was just a referee, telling them, okay, I'm setting some rules. This person will talk first, you will listen, then you will do this, and then there will be heated argument, I'm just thinking, okay, we need to stop here, So nothing was dealt. Maybe I was able to help them save their marriages, but it's not about saving a marriage, we're talking about here. It's about saving your life, because if you do not deal with these deadly issues, it can cause fatalities. Fatalities are harm to yourself, harm to other people due to your unresolved issues that we see, as I mentioned earlier, in the society, harm to your children because they're going to be shaped up just like that. And that's why we have so much chaos going on in the world. Those days have gone where, people in olden days, they stayed for a long time. My parents were married for a long, long time. Because, they believed in fixing things, not running away. Now that we have more options, and especially even in India, divorce used to be like a totally taboo. No, you cannot do that. But now, no big deal, And then we cannot just wash our hands by saying that, oh, this person was bad. So when I work with my clients, when I don't tell them that leave your partner, I work with them, see why you attracted this partner, They always try to tell me, my husband needs to come to you. I just tell them, why? Why you think he needs to come? So he can fix himself and you can feel good. I just give an example. I said, you have a problem, some cavity in your tooth, and your husband has it too, okay? So who can you take to the dentist? You, right? So if you don't go to the dentist, you're still hurting. And if your husband, goes to the dentist, for example, would that heal your problem? No. So we don't base our happiness on, oh, this person needs to heal, I need to heal, And when you heal yourself, and if if he is not healing, I like, David Hawkins' book. He talks about, like, in that book, Power versus Force, how one person's healing can empower 70 million people. I would say, this is true in my case, because I see people that I know. I see all those people respond to me differently, including my own husband, So I see changes when you change with PSYCH-K, when you change, that your whole brain state actually invites others to be that way too. So we have the power to heal others with our own healing. So instead of focusing on who else needs to come, to see me, focus on, be the example. When they see change in you, they might say, we have a number to call her. I also need to do some work. And then you say, well, good, I was able to inspire. You're supposed to inspire other people with our work, not feel good so they can do the work, So that's what happens all the time in a relationship. We're blaming each other and not looking within, see why I attracted this relationship where there's a constant struggle going on.
Now, just to be more specific for the listeners, what specifically does PSYCH-K do? Does it help you to see and to change that subconscious programming so that you can be more present in the now for how things actually are?
Definitely. Oh, I can tell you what I have done with myself, and I have worked with many, many people, and they're all living beautiful relationships. What I started from me, because I needed to know, the work more deeper and apply to myself, first. And working with myself, using this work, I was able to identify that people are treating me how I'm treating myself, And I have no mercy on myself. I'm a workaholic. I'm always working. People would call me that you're workaholic, and I'd get mad at them. But then I saw my father. He had to raise a big family, so he was always working, I saw him not have emotional, conversation with anyone, So I thought this is how, when you get married, then you are supposed to do this, So I was just following his footsteps, And part of it was because of that, and part of it was not to shame myself, because I didn't trust myself that if I spend more than 15 minutes with my husband, I will not end up here. It's not that he said something to hurt me, but I would perceive everything wrong. So one day I got so frustrated, he said, why don't you make a list of things that do's and don'ts, because I don't know. He was so frustrated. He did not know how to handle. He didn't know. Or maybe we shouldn't even talk to each other, because whatever I say, you take it personally. So then I was able to, with PSYCH-K, to find out why what he says hits me so hard. And I was able to get to those emotions, get to those beliefs, and change those, and changing the perception. That helped me to change the perception, looking at my husband from a different place. So he's not my dad, I perceived every behavior like he was my dad. And he's a big man, so when he talks, he's a little loud voice, but this is how he is. But but I perceived that time that you're getting mad at me. You're raising your voice, and he would say, when am I raising my voice? I said, not now, just a few minutes ago. But he wasn't, but I was perceiving it that way. It felt like I'm always looking for chaos. I'm always looking for, because subconscious prefers the familiar, When things go right, I'm in a honeymoon phase. I feel better. The moment the honeymoon phase is over, I'm back to this thinking the same way. So PSYCH-K helped me to create programs in me that even though I didn't see growing up a loving relationship with my parents, I am capable of creating a loving relationship, first with myself and then with other people. So my work was more about self-love. Self-love, because if my subconscious mind doesn't know what love is all about, somehow I have to introduce the love concept to my subconscious mind. And how would I do that? I deserve to love myself. Okay, great. So I need to do some action now. Okay? For example, I never ate breakfast. Or I was always in a rush, pack my food from McDonald's, on the way to beach, That is not love. So I just changed my actions after my program. You don't change the behaviors to feel better. you change your actions after you change your programs. Because if you change your actions, okay, for example, if you think you need to go to the gym, right, and you just sign up for, I've done that too, sign up for the whole year program and you go a few times and you never go. We need to go. Why in the first place? I'm not going. We need to work on that, because not doing things that I wanted to change, I felt even more guilty and more ashamed and felt powerless and helpless. What's wrong with me? That I cannot change myself. God, it's shame. God, I try to help people, but look at my own life; it's total mess. And people didn't know that. They always perceived me as a very happy person. I knew inside what was going on. It was scary for me. So Psyche helped me actually to go to those dark places in me and then clear that and have a light, ignite my own inner light to see what's going on. And with love and patience, I was able to slowly, one at a time, change my titles, heal my resentments, my abandonment issues, my fears, everything. So if my life is working great, not just in my marriage, but in every area, it's because all those issues that were still there in the subconscious mind, the programs, that were taking a toll on every aspect of my life, First I became emotionally broke, and I also became financially broke, I didn't become emotionally broke after I had a loss in my businesses and money situation. I was already emotionally broke, I was broken inside of me. So working on myself instead of trying to do things from outside, that became very clear about, 7-8 years ago, that there's nothing we need to create outside first until we are ready. You don't take a car on a sports ground until you prepare it to be a sports car, So you cannot run away from these programs, You bump into people and situations, have accidents, physical accidents and emotional accidents, where, you'll be brought back to yourself and see. At that time, you can either say, oh, I'm not lucky enough, God, other people are more lucky than me because they're able to try to look at this person, that person. But do we really know the person we're talking about, if they're really happy? Because I've also seen people who look so good outside, And, for example, this actor recently, we all thought about he's the totally balanced guy, his family, everything is, in balance. And then we hear that, okay, his wife is divorcing him now. So, we don't know what's going on. People who actually look good, too good, there's something going on. Otherwise, we should be just normal. Sometimes, not feel good, sometimes feel good. It's okay. Those minor ups and downs people go through, But when it becomes too much, and it causes a situation where you decide you want to leave each other, at that time, instead of leaving each other, the only time I recommend to people to separate is when the partner is actually abusive and alcoholic and it's not safe, physically safe. So then I would recommend that take a break and still not get into another relationship. In psychotherapy, I used to tell people that take a break for 1 year, because that's what I learned. But it's not taking a break from 1 year. What you will do in that 1 year will decide what kind of relationship you will attract now. So it can be a beautiful opportunity how you were treated in a relationship for you to know that, you have been treated poorly for a long, long time. It's time to take a look at these programs and change those programs. And like Bruce Lipton says, have a honeymoon effect. There's not wait for have a heavenly effect, and be in a honeymoon all the time, and not wait for to go. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? So you can create a heaven right here by being in a beautiful relationship with yourself that will reflect in every relationship. Now I get compliments. People tell me, I like your attitude, I like your energy level. Of course I get, and it feels so familiar to me. I don't feel like, oh my God, they're praising me. I need to run away from here. Too much praise I cannot handle. I couldn't even handle a simple compliment from people. That's how bad it was with me. So I'm honored to know this work and spread this work and share this work and teaching workshops and working with people in person and on Skype all over the world and helping them to find peace within, find love within, so that they can attract that, more of that from outside.
I think you bring up something that for our listeners they really should hopefully pay attention to, and that's how when you begin to change that subconscious programming, and it really doesn't matter how or when it came in, just know that it's there and that it's changeable. And the reason that it's there in the first place is that we have a reptilian brain that seeks patterns. It's part of our survival mechanism. But we don't live in that day and age where we're running away from animals for our survival and that sort of a thing. So we are in an opportunity that these things can change. We can begin to step out of the familiar into the unfamiliar and to begin to stretch ourselves, into ways of being that should hopefully simply astound us, to reach that potential within us, whatever that may be. It's different for everybody. That when you can come to that point, as you're saying, that through the use of PSYCH-K, you were able to see permeating changes in all areas of your life. You said you were broke emotionally, therefore, in the physical world, you were broke financially as well. And it reminded me of a time I was speaking with a gentleman who wrote a book about how to become filthy, stinking rich and still have time for great sex, I think was the name of the book. Interesting title. But he said something during the interview that I was puzzled over for quite a while, but now I came to understand, why. And that is, he says, you could take all the money in the world, you can throw it up in the air, and equally it can land into everybody's lap. In other words, everybody's going to have the same amount of all the money in the world. Okay? He says, I'll guarantee you in a year the people who were broke will be broke again, and the people who were rich will be rich again. And I was puzzled over, well, why is that? And then I began to realize over the time and the years that, well, it's because of the subconscious beliefs they have about material abundance, or just materialism maybe in general. And to take a look at that and realize, okay, well, if I am the way I am, and this isn't the way that I want to be, what do I need to change within me so I can be that person that I wish to be? And you realize you are really more powerful beyond measure, that it's really completely up to you. Not somebody else to do that for you, but it's really up to you. But the question is, are you willing to do what it takes to get there?
Yeah, you want to set a goal so high that you can't reach until you become that person. So if you don't become that person, if outside reality only defines you, I am a business entrepreneur, I'm successful, and you don't believe at the subconscious level that you are successful, and you're worthy of this success, you're going to blow it, It's going to be gone. You'll be back to square one again and thinking like, oh my God, You see many people like that. I mean, I was one of them all the time, getting my house refinanced to pay off my credit cards, How many times I did that? My husband was so frustrated, he did not know what to do. He's literally begging me, cutting my cards and telling me, those were my subconscious ways to soothe myself by, my actions outside to soothe the trauma of what was in me I needed to heal, And, I wanted to tell you something very interesting, that growing up in a family where we had just enough, so all my friends, in the neighborhood were very rich, girls, and so I would feel they would make fun of my clothes and, all this stuff, And so when I chose to become wealthy, and I realized that, I have everything now, but I still don't feel good,
Right.
I need to work on how not having enough money, and my parents telling me, you cannot go to this school trip, or you cannot buy this, or they'll buy me shoes that I don't like, So how did that affect me emotionally? So that was also part of my programming, that how it made me feel ugly, and made me feel inferior, made me feel unloved, shame, all that stuff. So that was still part of me. So creating things from outside, it doesn't solve anything inside. So for people who are listening to this, seriously, I would highly recommend them that please work within and create your reality from inside out, because our life is a reflection of those programs that we have. If people are experiencing, but go to the subconscious mind and get a message, Don't shoot the messenger,
Right.
Get the message. Don't fix the problem outside, and then you see how beautifully, effortlessly, you will be attracting things that you never dreamed of, and you will feel very normal about it. Oh, that's good. I'd say my subconscious programs, my life is a reflection of my beautiful subconscious programs, and I do my actions that my programs actually call me for action because I have a desire all the time, and I feel I deserve to feel good and feel at peace. So I choose my battles. So I just choose to not get into things that's not part of my subconscious mind anymore. The consciousness, I don't have a need to feel bad. I don't have a need to feel guilty. So those are the things that I've changed, and that's beautiful. So I recommend to people that, please take a look within and change whatever is still hurting.
Now, Rita, where is a website people can find out more about your work and workshops and that sort of thing?
You can find me at ritasoman.com. You can find me on your Beyond 50 website, too, now that you've created a beautiful landing page for me. I'm so grateful for your presence in my life, you and Joy. You both give me so much joy, and I'm so honored to know you and work with you since when I first learned PSYCH-K. I was so excited about it. I'm still having same excitement, working, using this work, and also working with the same people who actually helped me to get the word out so people would know about it. So they can reach me on my website via Beyond 50 Radio, or they can also email me, rita.soman@gmail.com, or they can text me at 503-667-2023. I'm teaching a workshop in February, on 13th and 14th of February in Portland. It's like a Valentine's special workshop where, people can create their custom beliefs, about to create a relationship that they've been longing for. And so it just teaches you how to find and change beliefs. But when time comes to practice and they teach you how to create your own custom beliefs, that time you can, if you are having problem in relationship, you can create some beliefs that would help you to, replace the old definitions and own beliefs, and you'll end up one day just finding yourself in a relationship, you never thought about, and it's that simple. I just want to quickly give you an example of a person who came to me for some work, and so she lives in Salt Lake City, as she was working on with some issues from past life, and she said she feels better in most areas of her life, and she said the biggest surprise bonus was that I had a lot of psyche balancing on. I did a lot of psyche balancing on relationships issue, even though I was not really looking for a partner, and just within a few weeks I met the love of my life. I hadn't even dreamed that a relationship could be this amazing, and the way it all happened, was absolutely miracles. And she calls this miracle, but I would call it the alignment between the conscious mind, what you want, and your subconscious mind says, yep, we can do that. And she's able to create it. She's been happy relationship, a very beautiful relationship for almost 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. In closing, I kind of want to bring this up for the listeners because you hear so much talk about this in the New Age community, and that is the law of attraction. And I can simply tell you this. The law of attraction is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The question to ask yourself is, do you like what you're attracting into your life? And chances are, if there are no's in there, then maybe it's time to do a little bit of balancing on that, and that way you can begin to attract those things that you would like to see more of in your life. Do you see how it all starts with you? Rita,
you're right about that.
Well, it's totally true, and I remember when I started becoming aware. Well, wait a minute, this law of attraction really does work, and it works. And I think the more inner work you do, and let's say, and I say this loosely, let's say more spiritually that you become, that your attracting factor, so to speak, accelerates. It happens faster. And you find yourself sometimes being careful about, what am I thinking? What am I saying here? Because that might just show up on my doorstep. So I better either be ready for it or be sure that I don't attract that at all. And it's pretty interesting how life really surrenders itself.
Yeah, life, 95% of the time, life is responding to us, So we cannot blame my life is a mess, That program is a mess. We need to rearrange that there,
Well, Rita, it's certainly been a wonderful pleasure to have you here on the program again. And one more time for our listeners, why don't you go ahead and give out that contact information so they can discover more?
It's Rita Soman, RITASOMAN.com, and they can also actually buy my book, Thank God I'm an Empowered Woman, from Amazon, and then read more about my journey and my triumphs. And there's information about my contact there, and they can email me, rita.soman@gmail.com, or text me at 503-667-2023, or find me at Beyond 50 radio page.
Beyond 50 Radio. Rita, thank you so much for joining us here on the program today.
Thank you, Dan.
You bet. We do encourage you to visit and find out more at beyond50radio.com. There is the number 50 there that you type in. And be sure that you subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter as well. You can also follow us on Twitter at Beyond50Radio, Google+, as well as Facebook. We want to thank you for joining us today. I'm Daniel Davis. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.